Hi everyone, Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel. And I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather forecast for the week of June 21st through the 27th. And we are on the solstice on this Monday. And what I'd like to really say mainly about this week is that it's going to be a week of shifts in energy. We're going to feel like a lot of the energy that has been dominant, say, for the last 3 or 4 weeks, is going to move into like new places. And so there's several things that I wanted to talk about that lead to that. One of them is Venus hitting some aspects this week and then changing signs into Leo at the end of the week. And then Mercury changing directions and Neptune also changing directions. Mercury going back to direct, Neptune going retrograde. And then we have a full moon at 4 degrees Capricorn this week also. And we also have Saturn sextiling Chiron. So like when I look at all four of these things together and how energies work together, I'm feeling like we're gonna, definitely all be sensing shifts in the energy of the last few weeks. First off, let me just talk about the Venus thing because it really starts the week off. So Venus is gonna make 3 aspects early in the week to outer planets, and then we'll change signs on the weekend. And so it starts on Monday today when Venus is trine Neptune. Now, Venus trine Neptune is a beautiful aspect. Venus being the lower octave of love, really, love on the human relationship scale. The trine being harmonizing type energy, and then Neptune being the higher form of unconditional or spiritual or compassionate love for all. So this aspect really blends the form of lower and higher love together and can really be very appealing to our ideals, especially through relationships, but also like just sensing and feeling the beauty around us, getting like inspiration from that, and possibly turning that into some kind of creative type of output too that is artistic in some way. And then also on a relationship scale, and it has the energy that brings people together on like what is like a soul union kind of energy. So people who are being like drawn together that are meant to be together in the sense of forming very idealistic and inspirational relationships, which usually go into some kind of creative manifestation, which can be romantic in nature, not necessarily so all the time, can be very spiritual in nature. And like I said, has a lot of understanding and empathy built within it. So that's an interesting start to Venus's journey this week, but then it runs into 2 more difficult aspects with 2 of the outer bodies, and the first one being square Eris, which Eris has definitely been showing a lot of reactionary energy, like in the sense of using Eris seems to be something that does give us part of the picture of what's going on. I mean, so Venus is squaring Eris this week. And, to me, I think what a lot of this may be is like if we're making these connections with people on this deeper level of this like union of something that's maybe like meant to be like, how does that shake up our world? Because that's what kind of Eris does. It's like it brings like, for want of a better term, chaos into our world. And of course, whenever we invite other people into our world, I don't want to say that creates chaos in the sense of something that's very negative, but it changes what what we do and where we're at, because when we allow other people into our life, we're kind of somewhat at the whims of them then. So like it's good to be like, discerning about that kind of thing. And I think sometimes that's something that people learn over time, with wisdom and age. Is like, who am I going to let in and allow my energy of my life to be influenced because simply I'm having a relationship with this person. And like I said, relationships run the gamut of all types of relationships. So I think the square to Eris is like going to be the challenge of like, well, if I'm going to let this energy in of other people or persons or person, then what kind of challenges does that bring to my life, and the adjustments I have to make to that? Now, of course, if a relationship is already in weaker position, the Venus square Eris can be very, very, shaking of that relationship and can bring it to like a crisis point for sure. So those of us who are in relationships that are like feeling a lot of stress, this could be a very triggering event. And remember, like, that energy, especially in Aries, is going to be very like headstrong and non-thinking and reactionary. So like, that's not necessarily some road that, if you go down and get too impulsive with, could lead, to some pretty like dramatic kind of, Eris type energy. And then the third aspect, which follows on Wednesday then, is Venus opposite Pluto. So this is kind of interesting. It's like, which route are you taking? Because like Venus opposite Pluto is very intense energy. It's the energy of a one-on-one relationship that is getting deep. And when things get deep, like, it's not only, the good or positive or things that you may like that starts to come up. It's also like the shadow side, the side of seeing the human nature of everyone come in, and like the ability to, can you have any tolerance for that, or is it like pushing you too far? So like, so Venus opposite Pluto, like on one level, it's going to deepen a relationship no matter what, but it can easily turn into like what in effect is a power struggle, manipulative type of situation. And especially in relation to like the thing with Eris, if it's, doing this, which is going to actually be in a mutable, or no, it's, I shouldn't say that, mutable, but with Eris, it's going to have this tight square energy going on that can trigger the Pluto part of it too. So it's like, okay, it's going to sit there and be like, how intense can I take this? And what's that limit? And, what's that triggering in me and in the other person? Now, on the positive side, for people who have built like trust or are willing to look into the shadow of themselves that they're seeing reflected in those relationships, then it can be a very transformative event, not only for the relationship, but for the individual, in the sense of like learning much about ourselves and our psyche and the depth of it, and the effects we have on others and ourselves, and then the acceptance of like a lot of the deep psychological stuff that humans all share. And so, like, maybe the trying back to Neptune and the tolerance and the compassion that that brings in can actually chill that all out and find a nice balance. So I think there's really a good opportunity to get like an ideal relationship that's forming, that maybe creating some chaos and change in your life, but could bring you to some really new depths of understanding of yourself and relationships and the people that you're having those relationships with. Now, Venus will go into Leo on Sunday, the end of the week, and that's definitely a shift too, because when Venus goes into Leo, once again, about relationships, she's very vivacious, but she's very, 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 very dedicated to her friends, and like is really, sometimes to a fault. But that being said, if anyone is feeling like someone's been dishonest with you, Venus and Leo, that's a really big strike against that person. So, if you find out that dishonesty is at the end of this, and then when Venus goes into Leo, it's like something where, that person, there's a shift in the perception of that person for you. And so, yeah, but like there's a lot, otherwise Venus in Leo is like, it wants to be seen with the in crowd. It wants to look good. It wants the people and surroundings that we're in to look good and reflect that too. So it's kind of can be a little bit conceited at times, for sure, and very loyal to friends as long as they're being honest to that. So yeah, so Venus's journey is very interesting this week, and there's some shifts there. Now, the second thing, and it's tomorrow, and I know a lot of people, including myself, will be happy that Mercury is going direct tomorrow, June 22nd, on Tuesday. Now, remember, this is the thing. Just because it's going direct doesn't mean everything is full speed ahead. In fact, if anything, the early part of this week, the extremity of the Mercury retrograde type of events will reach a peak. Whenever the Mercury changes the actual direction, when it stations retrograde and stations direct during that retrograde period, that's when the most acute physical world events seem to really cluster, as far as being like influenced by the energy of Mercury retrograde. So we're not out of the woods, the day it turns direct. In fact, if anything, the early part of this week, we're going to see, more of that density. But then as the week and the rest of the month goes on, Mercury will start moving faster forward, and we will slowly see things turning around. So you'll sense that turnaround right away. But there'll still be like a lot of like, what was coming down still has to be dealt with. So a lot of momentum that needs to be dealt with from the end of the Mercury retrograde period. And then Neptune going direct on the weekend, going retrograde on the weekend. And that's kind of interesting because, like, once again, it's a it's a real long-term transit, because when Mercury goes retrograde, it's going to be retrograde for like 5 months. And so it's going to be a time when we're really having to assess like our ideals and the things that inspire us, our spirituality, our creativity, our compassion and understanding and tolerance. Those kind of things really there's going to be a lot of self-reflection about those things over the next few months. So that's a couple more shifts. And then Saturn sextile in Chiron is an interesting one. I think here, this is one of those ones where you get a couple of the long-term bodies out there, planet and Centaur, that have a lot of influence on us. And it's going to give us like opportunities to like, create stable healing structures within our life. So like that may come through others, especially with Saturn and Aquarius. It's like come through groups, but with Chiron in Aries, you have to like, once again, sextiles are all about like, opportunity. And if you don't take the opportunity, then, they really don't do much. So like with Chiron and Aries, it's up to the individual to really take action on that. But like to, blend a lot of like what our self-healing journey is into what is going on in the groups and society around us with Saturn and Aquarius, that'll help improve structures that will be mutually beneficial for everybody, that improvements of those structures. So really interesting chance to do that, like to create new forms of healing, new forms of learning, new forms of teaching, and to have that in a reciprocating kind of relationship where, you're giving and receiving on that. So like definitely a really good way to work with the Saturn and Aquarius energy that's going on, all this year into next year, and the improvement of structures and forms in our life. Okay, and then like I guess the last thing I really want to mention is that full moon, and it's an interesting one. So the full moon is in Capricorn on Thursday, and it's at 4 degrees Capricorn. And then I know a lot of you guys aren't astrologers, but right away I was like, oh, so this full moon is conjunct the eclipse point of December 2019's new moon. Interesting, huh? That's a solar eclipse that started back then. And that was, when we think about December 2019, it's a pretty significant month in modern history. And it was an eclipse season. And now this new moon this month is going to be conjuncting that same exact point in a full moon. And really, full moon really exposes things, brings things out to the light. So what was December 2019 all about? What it was all about was the beginning of a story we're still in the middle of. And that is when the COVID virus was really starting to spread throughout the world. So it's interesting, it makes me feel like that in this next cycle with the full moon, we're going to see or get information that we did not know about prior to that. Like the light of it's going to be shining on, and that there'll be like developments in that too. And, possibly positive, possibly negative, most likely both. So that's really interesting. But what else is interesting about this new moon is the one aspect it's making is sextiling Jupiter, and which means the sun is trining Jupiter, and Jupiter is just stationed, so it's kind of in a strong position, just like when Mercury, say in stations, when the planet's stationed, they're really feeling strong. And Jupiter is in the sign of its rulership right now, Pisces, just a couple degrees in, but it's in a strong spot there. So first of all, the full moon in Capricorn is like very interesting in itself. It's always a challenge because Capricorn is the sign that the moon is most uncomfortable in. Capricorn's all about trying to restrict and control emotion, whereas the moon is all about emotion. So when Capricorn energy, when we're all feeling triggered by Capricorn energy, basically we're not feeling secure. We're questioning whether our survival is secure. And we feel like, even though we're getting what we need, it's barely, that it's hard to, it's a struggle at times to get by. And this can be like across all kinds of gamuts, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It just feels like, oh, I'm kind of getting a morsel is a good way to say it. I'm getting just a morsel of what I need rather than, the full plate. And so like, it's interesting, Capricorn can really, click into our survival mode energy and will be very much like, listen, I've got to take control of the situation based on what I already know. Because it's like Capricorn's a very wise sign. A lot of wisdom involved. It's the wisdom of the elder. And so like it knows what has worked in the past to be able to get through any times, hard times, difficult times. So it's like really attached to that. And that's why it wants to like, get control of any situation that's emotionally triggering and somehow like tone that situation down, restrict it or inhibit it in some way. So that's the energy of the full moon itself. And then, like I said, it's ruled by Saturn. So Saturn's in its higher octave sign, though. Saturn rules Capricorn, but it also rules Aquarius, which is where it is right now. And so it is being ruled, or the planet that's ruling this full moon is in a place where it is open to seeing how the structure can be changed and can do group collaboration and come up with like cutting edge type ideas on how to improve structure in our lives and society and things like that. So it's very interesting on that level, but one of the things I noticed about this though, remember, Saturn is in that sextile Chiron that I just talked about. So it's going to, once again, there's an opportunity by using this full moon, by using the things that it's exposed and that we can see now that, and know ways to make, structure and systems in our lives and in society better. Here's this Chiron coming in too to help out. But it's interesting because Saturn is actually on the midpoint of Chiron, but also the South Node in Sagittarius, which right now is conjunct Juno. So Saturn, the ruler of the chart, on the midpoint of Chiron with South Node Juno on the other side. So I sat there and think, what that is saying is that old partnerships may be the thing that's holding people back from their ability to get that healing opportunity to work in their life. Like old groups, old associations, old partnerships, or even the old structures that we're comfortable with. But the Juno brings in a partnership form of that, of like looking at different partnerships that you have from the past. And is that somehow what's holding you back from the ability to make changes in your life? So very interesting there. And then what's really cool is the sextile to Jupiter and the trine of the sun to Jupiter in Pisces, which is a stationary Jupiter in its rulership and sign. So it really is saying, hey, there's opportunities out there right now to connect with the Pisces with people who are coming from like basically the same spiritual or value viewpoint as you, and the ability to work in groups really well and get benefit for yourself and the group, including emotional happiness. And then with the sun part, like even the ability with the trine, especially to like harmonize and get benefit in the physical world from it too. So it's a really interesting full moon, I mean, it just like, it's like, we have to remember too that Saturn is really tight with the second square to Uranus too. So right now is like a really delicate time where, structure really is falling apart and being shaken up in our lives. And yet, like, here's these opportunities and maybe even some roadmap signs showing us that what may be holding us back from those things. And it's interesting too. You got Jupiter is just turning retrograde for 4 months, and Saturn, the ruler of the full moon, is retrograde too. So whatever we're doing now in reaction to the opportunities of the Jupiter and to the full moon and Saturn sextiling the Chiron, whatever we do with those things now, the fruition or the results or the consequences of those things are not going to be seen until the fall. They're not going to get immediate like satisfaction on that human level of wanting instant gratification for what we're doing. With these retrograde things, Neptune too. I mean, this is really, we need to look at this stuff inside, is what all this is saying. That we really need to come to terms with it ourselves inside before that outer world stuff's going to react to it. But like, it's like, so it's like, but Saturn can be strong in working for that long term. And frankly, it seems to me that a lot of the energy going on in the world right now and in individual lives is like, what other choice do you have at this point if we can't improve the systems that are failing us both individually and socially? So like, it really, even if it's like, 4 months, that mentality of the instant gratification has to be dealt with in a more mature manner. And maybe that's where the Capricorn wisdom can come in and be like, yeah, you might have to, restrict and be conservative and a little stoic in the way you are to, get through a period of crises, and then stay with your nose to the grindstone with the wisdom that you have and working with the groups that are sharing those ideals and clearing the stuff you need to clear at the same time. And that can lead in the fall to something that's more solid in the results. All right. This is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. Become a follower on YouTube. This is a free service, and I'd really appreciate if that you could all pay me back by passing on the link to at least one person. If you follow on YouTube, you have to have an account. You have to turn on the notifications too, and it'll let you know whenever I post a blog. Some people have been saying I've been missing them on the social media. I can't get to everybody. Like, there's more and more followers all the time. So sometimes like people get missed. Sometimes it takes me a couple of days. So like, becoming a follower is really the best way to know when the blog's been posted and available. Now remember, it's also available on all kinds of podcasts, and it's been growing on that level too, even internationally. And I thank you, people from outside the United States, for listening too. Really appreciate that. And so, mainly it's my voice. You don't have to see my face. So like, if you want, check out podcasts, just like, Apple iPodcasts. There's so many of them that have picked it up. Just, search for the Astrological Winds channel and you can find it there. I am available for all kinds of readings, and that's another way you guys can pay me back. If you need a reading or you know someone who needs one, please give the referral. Do birth charts, predictive readings where we look to the next year, relocation readings if you're thinking about moving somewhere else, election charts if you need the best timing for an event to start, horary questions, so all kinds of stuff, relationship charts, children's charts. So I am available for that. My email is matthue823@gmail.com. That is the best way to get in touch with me if you want to talk about prices and the readings. I'm also available for all kinds of events. If you have an event you'd like an astrologer at. Also, classes are available. There's 5 beginner classes. Email me about that. They're $25 a class. Can be taken sequentially or as one-offs. The Zodiac is up. And available on Dropbox. I just open up the Dropbox file for you. And once again, the email is matthue823@gmail.com. Anybody who wants to give a donation is welcome to, too. The email is also my Zelle and Venmo accounts, or even my Apple Pay too. So anyway, a week of shifts for sure. We should be sensing this. It's not going to go full speed ahead this week, this month, or even this summer, but we'll start moving forward again and sensing different things changing. Until next week, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I think next week, I'll probably do the monthly for July next week too, besides just the week one, especially since we don't have a new or full moon. And I'll probably do a separate blog on the solstice chart set for Washington, D.C. Anyone interested in mundane astrology, which is kind of one of my little hobby interests. Love looking at the quarterly charts to see what is going on for the United States for the next 3 months. Very effective way of getting a read on that. And I will probably have that up really soon. The solstice is today. I've looked at the chart and I know what I want to say about it. So anyway, until next week, this is Matt Lawton signing off. Happy solstice, everybody.